Hân Sự xin kính chào quý khán thính giả của Sài Gòn Network Television 51.3 và kính mời quý vị theo dõi chương trình văn hóa và xã hội của chúng tôi. Thưa quý khán thính giả, chương trình trước chúng tôi đã mời quý vị theo dõi cuộc nói chuyện với cựu đại tá William Comey, và kỳ này chúng tôi xin mời quý vị theo dõi tiếp. Cái câu chuyện sẽ rất là chi tiết trong trận đánh Tết Mậu Thân. Once again, Colonel Comey, let's finish the story that we started previously.
Okay.
And this time, I would love to hear your detailed journey story when Tet offense happened.
All right.
Yes.
Well, it started in Hue with troops invading it. For Fubai, which is 5 kilometers away, we were attacked primarily by rockets, hundreds of them.
So you was at Fubai,
Correct.
and then you were attacked by the rockets.
And then but my primary concern during the initial part of the Tet offensive was the evacuation of wounded from Hue and from Fubai, and the fact that the roads were all closed, so that the only way to Da Nang was by air, and all of the roads going north were closed, so that it really became a defensive situation. Within a week, we started engaging in the clearing operations to drive the North Vietnamese out of Hue, and that started with the Marines on the south side of the Perfume River, and the 1st Cavalry Division on the north side of the river. And it went very slowly because it was house to house fighting. The North Vietnamese were in Hue has a lot of big, heavy buildings that are made out of concrete.
But bring me back the first experience, the first contact. Although you said that you were warning a day ahead that there will be an attack.
Correct.
From the North Vietnam, but bring me back to the first moment that the attack is happening.
Well, the first attack, I think 146 rockets hit the airfield.
Oh, okay. Okay. It wasn't really a battle fighting the two forces, but it was a rocket.
For reasons that, well, you had the 1st Cav, all of these different combat units.
Right.
The North Vietnamese did not attack them directly. They went to the soft targets of Hue, where there weren't any real combat forces. They never mounted the ground attack on Fubai itself, although we had many false warnings that there was going to be a ground attack.
Right.
They never materialized it, and so it was more indirect fire on us, and the interruption of everything else was going on. Then when we went to the Battle of Hue itself, it just became an offensive operation for ground forces that had to clear the North Vietnamese out, and they were very determined not to leave. They did leave, but they were defeated, didn't leave willingly.
How did you move from Fubai to Hue?
In a Jeep.
In a Jeep. Oh.
Or walked.
On the road.
Yeah.
Oh, I
or
see.
Down the, you saw the picture, we used the rail line a lot.
Okay, all right.
Because that was one of the few bridges. The rail bridge was still intact, and the road bridge had been blown out.
Okay.
So that what we'd do is go down to the rail bridge, and they'd bring the wounded across, and then we'd take them back up to the airfield,
right,
and evacuate them.
Okay. So give us a sense. I know you probably can't remember exactly the day, but you give us a sense of the time that you were moving from Fubai to Hue to hopefully clear out the North Vietnamese soldiers.
That happened within 7 days of the attack.
I see.
That because I remember a meeting with General Abrams and several other officers, and the Marines weren't ready to move some forces that quickly, and he had some choice words for him about how quick we were going to go back in. And but they did a magnificent job. Very hard. There's been a lot of television coverage about that part of the Tet Offensive, but it was a unbelievable miscalculation by the North Vietnamese and an unbelievable intelligence failure by the United States, was my opinion of it as a captain in the Army at the time.
I see, both sides. Take us back to how do you take back the Citadel, and...
Well, the issue with the Citadel was primarily that we didn't want to bomb it,
right,
and destroy it. So in the end, we had to bomb it and destroy it. And it was taken back by Marines, very intense fighting, a lot of casualties. And the North Vietnamese hung on to it as long as they could, because the Citadel had become a symbol of the Tet Offensive in a lot of ways.
Right.
It was one of the few material or positions that the North Vietnamese held after the offensive started.
Right.
And they were defeated everywhere else. So it became symbolic. The press got involved with it. Walter Cronkite came to Vietnam to go look at it. And it just became a symbol of the intensity of the war.
The Occupy. So
and of course, Quezon was still going on,
right,
during the during all of this time too, and Quezon went on until July.
But they didn't want to leave the Citadel because, like you said, that's the last spot that they can hold on to it, and then symbol of their victory. I guess that's what they're thinking.
Well, that's what they were. Yes, I'm sure that's what they were thinking, because you know, their success in Saigon was very limited, and even Pleiku and those places didn't suffer anything like the damage that Hue did.
Right.
But it was really interesting. Like, go back to saying this, that the North Vietnamese actually believed that Hue, as a cultural and intellectual center of Vietnam, was going to join them.
That's what they believe.
That's why they brought those rifles. That's why all of the extra equipment was brought, because they thought they would be arming the population. And that's what their prisoners told us, that they had been told that the population is going to welcome you.
Amazing.
And then, of course, the number of South Vietnamese that were government workers who were executed by the North Vietnamese is very high, and their families, I guess. It was very vicious on the North Vietnamese part of the way they treated the population of Hue when it didn't join them against the Americans.
Oh, okay. So the execution of the Hue people, whether they are working with the government, whether they are soldier or not, I mean, in this case, it's civilian that being executed is revenge, because one part of it is because they didn't join the Vietcong.
I think that's my opinion, because
like they was expected.
We were told that the population of Phu Bai, or not, of Hue, was intellectual, was not particularly favorable to the Americans and to the Saigon government,
right?
And that it was the historic emperor of Vietnam, and so that to not expect, you know, to be very cautious about not imposing too much on Hue. Right. And of course, there had been no fighting in Hue all during the war, because both sides seemed to respect that we stayed away from it.
Now, we have few minutes left for the program. So after the U.S. Army as well as South Vietnam soldier liberated Hue, and were able to push back the North Vietnamese soldier back, then you move on and go to liberate Khe Sanh, recover Khe Sanh.
Right. Well, I was the targeting officer of B-52s. What we did the problem with the B-52 strike was that it targeted 12 hours ahead of time, so that when it got to Khe Sanh, it may or may not be the situation they're faced with. Mm-hmm. So what we did as an innovation was we put in a grid, and the grid is a series of boxes that are 1 kilometer wide, 2 kilometers long, so that within and then set the planes on a schedule so that the commander at Khe Sanh could ask for airstrikes, and we could hit wherever he wanted them within less than 30 minutes with B-52s. We also reconfigured the B-52 to the original use of B-52s. They were called arc lights, were 6 planes to a strike. They had 28 750-pound bombs, 105 250-pound bombs per plane. Mm-hmm. So we cut the number of planes in a strike to 3, which doubled the number of strikes we could make, and set up a smooth flow of aircraft so that effectively B-52s became close air support for the Marines at Khe Sanh. And it was the first time anybody had used that particular method of using B-52s. Right. They weren't designed for that.
Yeah, because of that you were able to recover the Khe Sanh.
I think it certainly was a major factor in the North Vietnamese not being able to assemble enough force in any one place to successfully take over or defeat the Marines. Because it was a siege. The Marines were held the high ground, and they stayed there. Right. But the fighting was extraordinarily intense. I've got several friends who were there.
Yeah. Well, during the time that the North Vietnamese was occupied Hue, which is also my village, close to the most famous temple, Nรึ่M and the north side of the Hue, I witnessed some bombing, very, very big, and I thought that was B-52. Who am I to know the B-52? But it create a lot of damage. But you were saying that there was no B-52 bombing during the Tet Offense in Hue?
No, there was not. It was all being eaten up by Khe Sanh.
I see.
But there was, now, once the decision was made to bomb, to use aircraft in way, then you were getting F-4s and F-5s and naval aircraft.
Could be one of those.
Then they have the same 750-pound bombs on them with a 250-pound bomb. So.
Well, Colonel Comey, I once again, time of our program is ended. I can't say enough how much I appreciate you spend time with us and give us a piece of history that maybe we don't have. The advantage point, your advantage point to see it. So, what would you say to the Vietnamese community after 50 years?
Well, first I want to say that, in my opinion, the use of United States use of military force to defend Vietnam was one of our finest hours. And my experience in Vietnam was always positive. I've had a lot of dealings with the Vietnamese community in Houston, which is very large and very industrious and very successful. And they've made a very positive contribution to our community. And I'm certainly glad to see that the relationships between Vietnam today and the United States appear to be improving greatly. and I think they will continue to improve greatly. So it was a very positive part of my life that I became associated with Vietnam.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for fighting for our country democracy. I'm glad that you came back one piece. Not many people as lucky as you are. We indebted to you for the fighting, and hopefully we'll have some more time later on to talk more about your,
Look forward to it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. Phan Dị xin cảm ơn quý khán thính giả đã theo dõi chương trình Văn hóa và Xã hội của chúng tôi hôm nay. Xin hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong những chương trình Văn hóa và Xã hội kỳ tới.